Sit down, Joe.
Why you think I made that?
Sit down, Joe.
Huh?
Sit down
Why
quick.
you think I made that?
The brothers are
You
here.
in this too?
No, sit down quick, Joe.
He was the man who called himself the greatest, the showman who danced around danger with a grin so bright it made the world believe he could never be touched. Yet behind the confidence and behind every playful rhyme designed to intimidate his rivals, Muhammad Ali carried a truth he rarely spoke out loud. Some fights left marks he wished he had never earned. Some nights inside the ropes weighed on his body and spirit long after the crowds went home. Ali built his legacy on courage. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage appears when fear is already inside you, whispering doubts that only the fighter can hear. As Ali grew older, when his hands began to tremble and his voice softened into a slow, warm echo of the young champion he once was, he finally allowed himself to look back at the wars that changed him. He remembered the blows that lingered for decades. He remembered the moments when his senses warned him that the man in front of him was more than just an opponent. He remembered the fighters who pushed him farther than he ever wanted to go. There were nights when Ali stepped into the ring and felt a danger he did not want to admit. Nights that carved pain into his ribs and into his memory. Nights when he realized that even legends have limits. Through all the battles he survived, 5 men stood apart from the rest. These were the opponents he regretted facing, not because of fear of losing, but because of the irreversible price he paid for standing in front of them. One fighter shattered his jaw and forced him to fight through a fog of pain. Another struck with a force that felt like it could darken a future. Another used youth and precision to expose vulnerabilities Ali tried to hide. Another faced him at a moment when he should never have stepped into the ring at all. And one dragged him into a place he later described as the closest thing to death. These were the names Ali never forgot, the men who left scars deeper than victory or defeat. Which of these 5 fighters left the heaviest shadow on the life of Muhammad Ali? Number 5. Earnie Shavers. He remembered the sound before he remembered the pain. That was how frightening Earnie Shavers truly was. When Shavers connected, it was not a normal punch. It was a crack in the air, a heavy thud that felt as if the ring itself had swallowed the impact. For years, reporters asked Ali who hit him the hardest. Ali never hesitated. He simply said, "Shavers." It felt like an axe chopping. There was no joke, no poetry, no bravado, only honesty. In 1977, Ali entered the ring with a calm face, but everyone close to him knew what he feared. He feared Shavers' power. He feared the moment the right hand would land. Shavers carried a kind of strength that did not care about fame or footwork or championship belts. It was raw, violent power, the kind that could rearrange a fighter's future with a single, clean shot. Early in the fight, Ali tried to control the pace. He smiled, talked, threw light jabs to keep Shavers thinking, but every time Shavers swung, Ali felt the warning. Even punches that missed created a breeze that reminded him of the danger. And then it happened. The right hand landed clean. Ali's legs betrayed him for a moment. His head rang. The lights blurred. He kept moving only because instinct told him to survive. Between rounds, Ali leaned on the ropes and whispered to his corner, "He can hurt me. I have to stay smart." That was not something he admitted often. His pride rarely allowed him to speak like that. But Shavers forced the truth out of him. Every minute with Shavers felt like waiting for a storm to break loose. Ali knew that one mistake could send him tumbling into darkness. As the rounds went on, Shavers continued to fire those terrifying shots. Ali used his experience to mask the damage. He smiled when he should have winced. He joked when his ribs ached. He raised his hands as if untouched, even though each blow left a bruise behind his eyes. The crowd saw a champion controlling the fight. Ali felt something different. He felt his reflexes fading. He felt the fear that Shavers might catch him again. When the final bell rang, Ali walked back to his corner with a victory on the judges' cards. But it was not a victory he cherished. His head throbbed, his equilibrium swayed. It was a night that left him drained in a way very few fights ever had. Years later, Ali admitted that Shavers' punches left deep marks inside him. Marks he carried long after the cameras turned away. Ali regretted taking that fight at a time when age was already whispering warnings. He knew his reflexes were slower. He knew his reactions were not what they once had been. Facing a man like Shavers required speed and crisp timing, and Ali no longer had those gifts in full. What Shavers gave him that night was not just pain. It was a glimpse of the cost of greatness. a reminder that even legends can be broken if they ignore the signs. Ali never forgot Earnie Shavers because Shavers forced him to face the truth of his own limits. That truth stayed with him long after the ring had emptied. Number 4. Ken Norton. The first time Ken Norton stepped across from Muhammad Ali, the world barely knew his name. Ali expected a tough night, but not danger. Norton looked calm, almost too calm, like a man who had studied every angle of the fight before it even began. What Ali did not know was that Norton understood his rhythm better than almost anyone who ever faced him. And when the bell rang, Ali realized he was dealing with a style that felt designed to hurt him. Norton fought with an awkward rhythm that disrupted everything Ali relied on. His jab came from below, not straight out. His guard closed tightly around his face, refusing to give Ali the openings he usually toyed with. Every time Ali tried to circle, Norton stepped in with a sudden leap that threw off the timing of Ali's footwork. It was like trying to dance with someone who refused to follow the beat. In the second round of their first fight, Norton landed a sharp left that snapped Ali's jaw. Ali felt a crack, followed by a cold rush of panic. He tried to mask the pain, but something was wrong. His mouth would not close properly. Every breath burned. Still, he kept fighting. Pride demanded it. The fear of public embarrassment demanded it even more. Between rounds, he whispered through clenched teeth, "I think he broke it." His corner looked at him in disbelief. A broken jaw against a physically powerful opponent should have ended the night. But Ali refused to surrender. He fought 12 more rounds in agony, the pain stabbing him every time he moved. Norton won that fight, and Ali walked out with his jaw wired shut, unable to speak for weeks. Ali later admitted that Norton was one of the few men who truly confused him. Norton did not just hit hard, he disrupted the flow of the fight. He forced Ali to think in ways Ali did not want to think. The ring was supposed to be Ali's stage. Against Norton, it became a puzzle that refused to be solved. Their second and third fights were closer, filled with tension and strategy. But even when Ali had his hand raised, he never felt in control. Norton's presence bothered him. Norton's footwork bothered him. Norton's confidence bothered him. In training, Ali would sometimes mutter that Norton was the kind of man who stole sleep from fighters. Not because he was deadly like Foreman or relentless like Frazier, but because he was unpredictable. There was no rhythm to read, no pattern to memorize. Ali once said, "His style was poison to me." It was a rare acknowledgement that someone could crack the code of his brilliance. Norton was that someone. Every round with him felt like walking through a room filled with hidden traps. One wrong move and the pain would return. Looking back, Ali regretted taking the first fight when he was still shaking off rust from his layoff. He regretted entering the ring without the sharpness needed to handle a man like Norton. The broken jaw changed his understanding of vulnerability. It reminded him that his body could betray him at any moment. Ken Norton left scars that never fully healed, not just physical ones, psychological ones too. He forced Ali to face a truth he had spent years avoiding. Even the greatest could be humbled by a fighter whose style denied him control. Ali never forgot that. Number 3, George Foreman. There was a moment in the dressing room before the fight in Zaire when Muhammad Ali looked at his team with a calm face that did not match the fear in his voice. He said quietly, "If I am wrong tonight, this man can hurt me badly." It was not showmanship. It was not a line for the cameras. It was Ali acknowledging the power of George Foreman, a man many believed was the most destructive heavyweight of his era. Foreman entered that fight with a presence that felt heavier than his fists. He smashed Joe Frazier in 2 rounds. He dismantled Ken Norton with a force that sent shock through the division. Fighters did not survive George Foreman, they endured him. And now Ali, older and slower than the young champion, was stepping into a ring surrounded by 90,000 people in the burning African heat. When the bell rang, Foreman came forward like an avalanche. Every punch he threw shook through Ali's arms and into his spine. Even blocked punches made the ropes quiver. Ali leaned back, covered up, and felt the vibration of each blow travel into his chest. Foreman hit with a kind of raw, violent strength that made the canvas feel like thin wood beneath Ali's feet. During those early rounds, Ali made a decision that would define his legend and damage his future. He allowed the punches to land on his gloves and arms. He leaned on the ropes, absorbing the storm. His plan was simple. If Foreman would not tire, Ali would drown beneath that power. If Foreman slowed down, Ali would find life in the chaos. Between rounds, Ali whispered, "This is madness, but it's the only way." His corner begged him to move more, but his legs no longer had the speed of his youth. Survival now depended on patience and pain tolerance. And so he stayed on the ropes as Foreman pounded away, turning each round into a slow test of human endurance. Then, when Foreman finally began to fade, Ali came alive. His fists snapped forward with crisp precision. His eyes sharpened. His footwork returned just enough to create angles that Foreman could not follow. In the 8th round, Ali launched the combination that sent Foreman crashing to the canvas. It became one of the most iconic knockouts in boxing history, the moment Ali reclaimed his crown in a place far from home. But victory carried a price that did not disappear with cheers. For years afterward, Ali felt the effects of the punches he chose to absorb that night. His reflexes slowed, his speech softened, his body aged faster than his years. And in private moments, he admitted that fighting Foreman at that stage of his life was a decision he both cherished and regretted. Foreman taught Ali a painful truth. Courage is not always loud. Sometimes courage is simply the willingness to face what terrifies you and trust your mind when your body is breaking down. Ali learned that greatness is not built on invincibility. It is built on sacrifice. Prize fighters do not only risk defeat, they risk the parts of themselves the world never sees. That was the lesson Ali carried from the night he faced George Foreman. Number 2, Larry Holmes. There is a unique kind of regret that only a fighter understands. It is not the regret of losing, it is the regret of stepping into a ring on a night when your body is whispering for mercy. For Muhammad Ali, that night arrived when he faced Larry Holmes, a man who once admired him, trained with him, and learned from him. Holmes knew Ali better than most opponents ever could, and that made the fight painful long before the first punch landed. Holmes had grown up studying Ali's brilliance. He had been a sparring partner during Ali's prime, absorbing every detail of Ali's timing, footwork, and rhythm. He respected Ali, even loved him in a quiet, loyal way. But when the fight was made in 1980, respect could not soften what would happen. Holmes was younger, faster, sharper. Ali was returning after 2.5 years away, carrying weight he should not have carried, breathing through lungs that had begun to lose their strength. When Ali arrived for training camp, his team already sensed something was wrong. His combinations lacked snap. His feet moved slower than memory suggested. His speech carried a softness that hinted at damage already forming. Doctors raised concerns, but the machinery of boxing rolled forward, powered by nostalgia, pride, and money. Ali convinced himself he could turn back the clock. Holmes knew the truth long before the opening bell. From the moment the fight began, Holmes treated Ali with a strange mix of professionalism and sorrow. He did not rush, he did not hunt wildly, he used his jab to test Ali's reactions. What he saw broke his heart. Ali could not see the punches coming. The jab touched him repeatedly, snapping his head back. The crowd cheered Ali's every gesture, but inside his body, something was failing. His reflexes were gone. His instincts tried to respond, but the signals traveled too slowly. By the middle rounds, the fight had transformed from competition into punishment. Holmes landed clean shots that once would never have reached Ali. Instead of dancing, Ali stood stiff, trapped in the memory of who he used to be. He fought with pride, not with speed. He endured, he refused to fall, but he was no longer the man who floated like a butterfly. His legs had turned heavy, and his arms could not return fire. Holmes looked at him between exchanges and felt pain of his own. He later said that he wanted to cry during the fight, not because he feared Ali, but because he knew what he was doing to a man he respected. Yet boxing has no pause button. It has no rule for mercy. Holmes continued to work behind his sharp jab, and Ali absorbed it with a stoic face that masked a deeper tragedy. Before the 11th round, Ali's corner finally intervened. They refused to let him stand up again. The fight was over. Holmes looked across the ring and saw a legend diminish, not by him, but by time itself. Years later, after Ali's health declined, Holmes expressed regret for taking part in a fight that should never have happened. He said, "He was my friend. I did not want to hurt him." Ali shared that regret. He admitted that stepping into the ring that night was one of the worst decisions of his career. The wounds from that fight were not just physical, they were emotional, the kind that remind a proud man that even greatness must eventually bow to age. From Holmes, Ali learned one of the hardest lessons of his life. Strength is not measured only by fists. Sometimes true strength is knowing when to stop fighting. Number 1, Joe Frazier. There were rivals, there were challengers, and then there was Joe Frazier, the man Muhammad Ali tormented with words, battled with fists, and ultimately feared in a way he feared no one else. Frazier was not simply an opponent. He was a force that pushed Ali into places no fighter should ever have to visit. Their final war in Manila became the fight Ali later described as the closest he had ever felt to death. From the opening bell of the Thrilla in Manila, the air inside the arena felt heavy enough to choke on. The heat wrapped around both men like a burning blanket. Sweat poured before a single punch landed. Ali tried to keep distance with jabs and angles, but Frazier had only one direction, forward. He slipped under punches, dug into Ali's ribs, and fired hook after hook with a fury that shook Ali from the inside out. Frazier did not care about reputation or poetry. He cared only about closing space and breaking the will of the man who had humiliated him outside the ring. Early in the fight, Ali realized he could not run. Frazier cut the ring, beat the body, and forced Ali to engage in a kind of close combat he never enjoyed. Each time Frazier stepped in, Ali felt the weight of his punches. They were not wild or uncontrolled. They were heavy, disciplined shots, thrown with the intention of folding a man until he could no longer breathe. Ali's lungs burned, his legs trembled. He whispered to his corner, "This is the closest I have ever been to dying." As the rounds passed, the fight became something beyond boxing. It became survival. Both men sank into exhaustion, yet neither retreated. Frazier's head movement kept him dangerous even after he absorbed endless jabs. Ali struck cleanly, but Frazier absorbed each impact like a man made of stone. Their blows echoed through the arena with a sickening rhythm, each punch carrying the weight of years of resentment. By the middle rounds, Ali could barely lift his arms. He leaned on the ropes, trusting his instincts to carry him through moments when consciousness felt thin. When he landed a sharp combination, he saw Frazier stumble but not fall. Frazier's one good eye still burned with determination. The other was swelling shut, yet he kept marching forward. The crowd could feel the brutality of every second. This was not sport. This was a battle neither man would ever fully recover from. In the 14th round, Ali found a final reserve of strength and unleashed a series of punches that rocked Frazier back. Frazier could not see. His corner stopped him from coming out for the 15th. Ali collapsed on the stool, too drained to celebrate. He whispered, "This fight was hell." The truth was deeper. Frazier had carried him to a mental and physical limit he did not know existed. Years later, Ali admitted he regretted how he treated Frazier outside the ring. The insults, the mockery, the cruelty. He said those words were among the deepest regrets of his life. Frazier deserved better. Frazier was a warrior who gave Ali the greatest battles of his career. Ali respected him more than he ever admitted publicly during their rivalry. What Ali took from Frazier was not just pain. It was a lesson about humanity. Strength is not measured by arrogance or showmanship. It is measured by the willingness to rise, again and again, even when the world has tried to break you. Frazier showed Ali what real courage looked like, and Ali carried that understanding for the rest of his life. When Muhammad Ali looked back on the wars of his life, he no longer saw victories or losses. He saw moments that shaped the man behind the legend. Each of the 5 fighters left something inside him that stayed long after the applause faded. Earnie Shavers carved a reminder that power can shake even the bravest heart. Ken Norton showed him how fragile confidence can be when faced with a style designed to expose weakness. George Foreman forced him to confront the cost of choosing courage on nights when fear whispered louder than pride. Larry Holmes revealed the sadness of time catching up with a warrior who refused to let go. Joe Frazier taught him the deepest truth of all, that respect is sometimes born from the very people who push us closest to the edge. Ali understood in his later years that greatness was never built from the easy nights. It came from surviving the nights that nearly destroyed him. These 5 men left scars that shaped his soul, not just his career. They reminded him that even the strongest champions carry shadows that the public never sees. And Ali, in his quiet moments, accepted that those shadows were part of what made him human. In the quiet years that followed his final fight, Muhammad Ali often spoke with a softness that carried the weight of everything he had lived through. He no longer talked about floating or stinging. He no longer performed for the cameras. Instead, he reflected on the people who shaped his journey. These 5 fighters did not simply challenge him. They altered the course of his life. They pressed him into corners where he had to choose between fear and courage, between pride and survival, between who he was and who he hoped to become. Ali eventually understood that a fighter's true legacy is not measured in wins or belts. It is measured in the moments that force him to grow. Earnie Shavers reminded him that power can humble even the greatest. Ken Norton reminded him that vulnerability can appear without warning. George Foreman reminded him that victory often demands sacrifice. Larry Holmes reminded him that no one can outrun time. And Joe Frazier reminded him that respect is sometimes born in fire. Ali carried these lessons into the world long after the crowds vanished. He became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that strength is not the absence of fear. Strength is choosing to face that fear again and again, even when the cost is high. His story teaches us that the greatest battles happen inside the human spirit, and that true greatness comes from the courage to rise after being broken. If you want more stories of the legends behind the gloves, make sure to stay with us for the next chapter.